Okay. Painting is, like any maintenance task, a sequence of events. One needs to follow the other in a proper sequence. And admittedly, what we have here is an example of a window that's pretty beat up. But the sequence is basically the same, and that is the window should be prepped, then it should be primed, then glazed and caulked, and then finish painted. When you're prepping a window, you see we have some things here where the paint is really in bad repair, scraping, sanding. You want to make sure you wear a good quality dust mask when you're doing any kind of paint removal or abrasion, and you want to collect as much of the debris as possible. What we like to use in my company is big pieces of cardboard, like what an appliance would come in. So you can lay it on the ground underneath the window or siding, whatever you're working on. And the debris falls onto the cardboard, and then you can kind of fold it up in a funnel and remove it. You want as little of that to hit the ground as possible. So one of the things we need to know when we're working on an old window is what glaze can stay and what needs to come off. And what we're essentially looking for is cracks where the glaze meets the wood and also the glass. One point to remember, though, is you never want to try to remove glaze by attacking it from the glass side. You're likely to crack the pane of glass if you do that. You always want to go in from the bottom and just start checking it out. And like Mike said earlier, if it's coming out fairly easily, then it needs to continue to come out. But if you're really fighting to get it out, it's something that you're better off working around. Here we have a window pane that has already been removed because it was broken, and Michael has gone ahead and done the priming where the glass will fit and will re-glaze. So it's ready now to finish out. So we want that to fit in real snugly. But then the next step is to apply glazing points. And even if you're not replacing glass, if a lot of glaze has been removed, you want to check to make sure there's a glazing point. And one thing you can do is kind of push on the glass a little bit, and if it's going back and forth a lot, that's a good indication that it needs a point to keep that glass locked in place before you glaze. The modern points have a little piece there that you can fit a putty knife in and push down on it. And we'll do that now. I like to use a painter tool called a 5-in-1 for this. You don't want something with a flexible blade. You want something that has some strength to it. And we fit the point. You just kind of get it started with your finger. And on this long section, we'll use 2 of them. And we try to get it pretty snug up against the glass, but so that it's driving into the wood there. And then just push down on it. Slowly and carefully. Okay, so now the points are installed and the glass is secure, and all we need to do is provide a good seal with our glazing putty. And it kind of helps if the glazing compound is a little stiff, or if you've just started working with it, it just kind of helps to work it around in your hands a little bit. We want to put it on in such a way that we cover this wooden edge here and bed up against the glass really well, but we don't want to make it so thick that when you get done, think you've done a great job, and go inside and look out the window, you see this big line of glaze. So you kind of need to be aware of that. And what we'll do is just kind of work this putty into a bead. And fit it in with our fingers. We've got that embedded now, and we'll smooth it out with a putty knife. And I do like to have something that has a little bit of flexibility rather than the 5-in-1, although some people probably like the chisel edge, but I prefer a little bit of flex. And we'll start at one corner, and using slow, consistent pressure, go to the other corner. And this is the part where you get better with practice. Once I've done that pass, just take your finger and go back the other way and smooth the putty. You're wanting to, you can make the actual putty a little smoother that way, but you also are making sure that you have a good seal against the wood, and even more importantly, against the glass. So I drew the knife this way, and just take my finger and push it back the other way. And at that point, you're reglazed. When you're repairing a pane where some of the glaze stayed on, like say the base stayed on but the top came off, and you're primed over that old material, you can glaze right over the top of it. Other times your glazing is in better condition, but there's maybe a little gap where it's met the glass, but the glaze didn't want to come out. You can take your glazing putty and with your finger just kind of make sure you fill in with the gap there. You know, a repair that is really minute enough that you don't even need to use a putty knife or tool. But it is important to make sure that all the cracks and the gaps are sealed up. At that point, you're ready for a good coat of paint, and I think what I would suggest is let the glazing sit at least for 24 hours. It wouldn't hurt to give it a little more time to kind of get cured out a little bit on this top edge, and then paint with a good quality exterior house paint. And the important thing to remember there is when you're painting, you want to, of course, do as straight a line as you can, but you want to get just a little bit over the edge of the glazing where it meets the glass. So you're sealing the glazing onto the glass, and that will allow for a better longevity of your repair. Like both Mike and I have stated earlier, a good quality old house wood window that's properly glazed and caulked and primed and painted with a good quality storm window over the top of it can be left alone for 15 years or more before you have to take the storm window off at that point and do further maintenance. So that's a pretty good life if you do the repairs correctly the first time.